Vores næste taler, A.J. Gevaerd fra Brasilien. Han er redaktør på det brasilianske UFO-magasin. Han er leder og stifter af The Brazilian Center for Flying Saucer Research. Han er den brasilianske leder af The Mutual UFO Network. Han har medvirket i mange dokumentarfilm og holdt foredrag i mere end 29 lande. Så har han deltaget i over 700 feltundersøgelser i forbindelse med UFO-sager. Så han er en meget, meget erfaren UFO-researcher, måske en af de mest erfarne i hele Sydamerika. Så godt imod, A.J. Gevaerd. Tak.
Thank you, everybody. And good afternoon. Good afternoon. Tak. This is all I know in Danish so far. This lecture will be in English, but if they have given me Tuborg and Aquavit enough, I probably would be speaking in Danish as well. Maybe next time. Well, folks, it's a great pleasure to be with you this afternoon in this Exopolitics meeting. And I congratulate you guys from Danish or Denmark Exopolitics for doing such a good job and get integrated with ufology and other exopolitics groups all over Scandinavia, all over Europe, and other parts of the world. Now, this is very important because we are in 2015. The UFO phenomena has been on with us for almost 70 years. It is about time for something big to happen. And we must be aware and united. So when it comes, we'll face it with more knowledge and more wisdom. Now, part of it is to know what the governments know about UFOs, and they are not telling us. I have been specializing myself in that kind of information, especially in Brazil. Now, maybe some of you don't know, but right now, over 20, somebody told me yesterday 21, but over 20 at least countries in the world have revealed their secrets about UFOs. Some of these secrets are not big deal, but some of them are really very important to know. Now, Brazil has a long history with ufology, with sightings of UFOs. And we have had our government dealing with this for quite some time. Now, I'll take you through the process that we did in Brazil, we the civilian UFO researchers did in Brazil to get it to release its UFO files. Most of them from the Brazilian Air Force, very few from the Navy, and none whatsoever yet from the Army. These are three separate forces, and of course they deal with the UFO phenomena differently. And while the Brazilian Air Force or any Air Force in the world is more open toward the subject, if it is open at all, their armies, the country's armies, are not that much. Probably most of the armies simply don't want to talk about it because there are different mentalities among this kind of militaries. Now, let me start by telling you something that is going on right now in Brazil. And I guess that you have never seen this before, even those who are more experienced and more familiarized with the UFO phenomena. Now, this is a page of a publication that is the official publication of Brazil. It means that everything the government does, everything that the Congress does, everything that the Senate does, everything that all ministries does, everything is published in that every single day as resolutions. So the government decides to build this road. The government decides to raise the wage of the public servants. Whatever. It's all published in that paper so everybody in the country can know what is going on in our society, in our government. And in August 10, 2010, which is only 5 years ago, we have the resolution number 551 GC3 issued by the top guy of the Brazilian Air Force. Its commander, Brigadier, which is equal to general, something like that, Junichi Saito. And it was decided that from that day and forth, all reports of UFO sightings should be received by the Brazilian Air Force installations in anywhere in the country. They must be sent to the National Archives, where they can be read by just about anybody in the country, because the National Archives, such as the National Archives of any country, are public files. You can go into the net, or you can go physically there and get all information that you want. Now, it basically says that right now, when the Brazilian Air Force gets a report from any citizen in the country, Brazilian or not Brazilian, saying that they have seen UFOs, that report is supposed to be made public. This is a law. This is a resolution. Now, very unique. Nothing like that has ever happened anywhere in the world, as far as I know. But it didn't come easy, and it didn't come free. It took us, Brazilian UFO researchers, a lot of work and effort to make it happen. And it all started back in 2004, 11 years ago, when some of us, UFO researchers in Brazil, we built an entity, a body, which is called Brazilian UFO Researchers Committee, or CBU in our language. So it's our researchers from several parts of the country with different thoughts. We left our differences apart to build a campaign to ask the government to come clear about UFOs. And that campaign was called UFOs Freedom of Information Now. The first ever initiative in the country asking for the government to release its files. And in its first phase, phase number 1, we issued a document putting very clearly what we, the Brazilian UFO researchers, think about UFO. And in 2004, we issued the Brazilian UFO Manifest, a document that gathered 70,000 supporting signatures from the people who thought that we were right in asking the government to come clear about UFOs. But yet, at that moment, the government, or specifically the Brazilian Air Force, did not move too much to accept our request and to meet our request with a reply that was satisfactory to us. Then, in 2007, we issued the phase number 2 of the campaign UFOs Freedom of Information Now, which is basically the dossier UFO Brazil, which was a most compelling document with more data, more information, and supported by the Brazilian law of access to information, that is the number 111 of 2005. Now, then something different started to happen. And we got lots of papers being released by the government, as you see. But we are not yet satisfied. We think that the government is yet withholding lots of UFO information, and we want all pieces of it. We want it all, because after all, we pay for that. We as taxpayers, we as our citizens, we are entitled to know everything that the government knows. And see, we're talking about the Brazilian government, a government that has dealt with the UFOs in a very serious manner for many, many years. Now, since 2012, we have started phase 3, which is called the Brazilian UFO Initiative, and it's still going on. But as I told you, as of 2007, lots of papers starting to be released and sent to the National Archives by the Brazilian Air Force. It is kind of old here. I should have corrected. It's not only 6,000 pages, about 7,000 pages of UFO-related material. And they were released in dates. First, the documents of the 50s. So from 50 to 1950 to 1959. Then from the 60s, then the 70s, then the 80s. When the 80s came, a book of papers, lots of pages, we were astounded to see how many useful and important information the government has been withholding from the society. But yet, now, as a gesture of goodwill, the government released the 80s, then the 90s, then the 2000s, and just a couple of years ago, it released the papers for the 2000 to 2010. We are expecting more to arrive anytime. It's all being declassified. Now, anyone, Brazilians or not Brazilians, can go to the National Archives and see what this paper contains. I will show some of what it contains here. But also, again, this is all due to the fact that Brazilian has a long history with the UFO phenomena. Most of the world UFO community doesn't know, but Brazil has been one of the first countries to acknowledge that UFOs are for real and they are not terrestrial at all. I guess that most of you have heard that France in 1976 was the first country to ever release its files and to admit that it has been investigating UFOs on official basis and has concluded that they are extraterrestrial. It happened in 1976 by a request made by the French President Alain Giscard d'Estaing to his Minister of Defense, whose name I don't remember right now, and it was worldwide spread the idea that France started as officially the first country to come forward about UFOs, admitting that UFOs do exist and UFOs are not from this country. However, in Brazil, in 1954, 22 years before France, at the Brazilian Superior School of War, we had the first official survey about UFOs. And the conclusion is what you can read there. The UFO phenomenon is real. Its origin is not terrestrial, requires maximum attention, and will be seriously investigated by the Brazilian authorities. Now, it was issued back in 60 years ago, 61 actually. A very important step in our trajectory, the Brazilian trajectory related to the UFO phenomenon. But there is more. 15 years after that, in March 1969, at the 4th Regional Air Command in the city of São Paulo, which is one of the largest in the world, it was built, it was created a body to officially investigate UFOs called Unidentified Aerial Objects Investigative or Investigation System, CON. Now, it has a big structure. They had UFO researchers, military and civilian, spread almost all over the country. Now, they have investigated from UFO landings in contact with their occupants, all based in a great infrastructure. They use that building that is from the aerial command in São Paulo, and they have numerous investigators towards the country. It was not secret, but discreet. most of Brazilian UFO activities hasn't been too secret as in the United States, for instance, but they were very discreet. So if you ask the government about it, it will say, yes, it happened. It's not a secret, but it will not advertise that it happened. You know the difference? So now they investigated and issued reports and bulletins since 1969 to 1972. Dozens of UFO sightings and landings were investigated. These are only a few pages that you can see of the documents. Look at this. All sorts of UFOs investigated. Tables with details of when UFOs were seen, by whom, what kind of people saw them, the instruction level they had, professions, during daytime, nighttime, if the UFOs provoked and physical effect, everything. They did just everything by the book, a military book to investigate UFOs. Now, they also dealt with UFO landed. These are all descriptions of UFOs typed and produced by military in a military style. Now, if you are familiar with the UFO investigation, the UFO research that so many of us do, this is precisely what we do when we go to the field to talk to the witnesses. But these guys doing this are not civilians. These guys were military conducting the same type of UFO investigations that we did for so long. Look at this, some other pages. And they have investigated even UFOs with occupants, like you see here. This, again, this kind of evidence doesn't come from Brazilian civilian UFO researchers, but from Brazilian military. And right now, this is all declassified. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of that kind of documentation, which you can also find in our website. Of course, all the documents are in Portuguese, but later on, I'll give you the website address, so you can go there and download it and see what we did. Also, the same military at the CON who investigated UFOs, they would make drawings based on the descriptions given by the witnesses of the UFOs that they saw. And here are some of these drawings, like this. Very unique type of UFOs, lights all over. This was investigated by the military. Such as this. Such as this. Again, UFOs landed. Such as this, and it all has been declassified. I'm showing you all this so you can know how Brazilian has been involved with UFOs since a long time ago. And we, the UFO researchers in Brazil, at least those with our, let's say, veterans or dinosaurs, like myself, I started like 35, 40 years ago to investigate it. And the other members of the Brazilian Committee of UFO Researchers are also people who have been in this field for quite some time. So we have seen a lot. We have seen many things going on in the country about it. And of course, when we decided to make the campaign UFOs Freedom of Information Now, we went naive to tell our government, hey guys, we want you to give us all. Open your files and give us. We are the citizens. We demand. Not that kind of BS, of course. So we designed a strategy that couldn't fail. Actually, I'm proud that I designed that strategy. And it's pretty simple. I said, no asking for everything. Let's ask for just about a few things. And we selected 3 cases, Frederik. 3 cases that happened in the 70s, in the 80s, and in the 90s. Only 3 out of thousands of cases. But these 3 cases had something in common. We had documentation that leaked previously to declassification that proved that the Brazilian government was involved in them. It means that if we ask something about one of these cases and the government says, well, we don't know anything about it, we would say, yes, sir, you do know. Here is the paper, the document that leaked a while ago that we got. Here's the witness testimony, a military who took part in these operations and this and that. So the government simply can't deny it, or couldn't deny the three cases that we presented. And I'll go through the three of them very fastly because we don't have much time. And you will know what kind of cases we're talking about, how tough, how compelling cases these are. The first one was the Operation Saucer, which took place in the Amazon from September through December 1977. And the second one, what we call the official Brazilian UFO night that happened on May 19th, 1986. And the third case, of course, lots of people here in DK have been asking me about the Virginia case. And yes, we included the Virginia case. So these three cases are the basics of our campaign, UFOs, Freedom of Information now, because the government wouldn't dare to deny that they have information about it because we know they have. Now let's go through each one of these cases as fast as possible, but yet so you can understand what we're talking about. Now the Operation Saucer was a military mission that took place in the island of Colares by the Amazon River from September to December 1977. And why it happened? It happened because in the years of 1975, increasingly in 1976, and then in the first semester of 1977, we had a continuous and very hard UFO wave. I mean, a lot of UFO sightings concentrated in that island and surrounding areas in the state of Pará, right in the middle of the jungle in the Amazon, but yet not an unreachable place because you can go there kind of easy by car, you can go there by boat, you can go there by bus. So it's something that can be investigated now. But coming back, speaking again about those cases, what was happening that started in 1975 and increased in 1977 was something very unique. UFOs would be seen during daylight or nighttime and would attack people. They would have this format, like a Tuborg can. Sorry for the analogy. It reminds me to have a Tuborg later. No offense to the Carlsberg drinker. Okay, they have this format, right? They would be like this with two guys inside of it. And what was unique about them is that a beam of light would come from the bottom part of it and would hit people. Yes, and would burn people. Now, people who got hit by that beam of light, they said that they lost blood because they felt anemic and extremely weak. So one doctor decided to check it out, Velaide Cecin, and she actually confirmed that out of the 400 patients that she attended, that she saw, all of them had missing blood. Because of that, and even before that, this phenomena, this kind of object, would be called the suck phenomena, or only the suck phenomena, because people believed, and it was true, that it was sucking blood out of them. Now, you didn't have where to go even if you are inside your house, because most of the houses in the island are shacks, not made with bricks, but made with wood or sometimes bamboos or whatever, and people would be attacked even being inside their houses. The beams of light will go towards the walls, the very weak walls, and hit people inside of it. I have gone to the island of Colares quite a lot, and I have been speaking with the witnesses that back in the 70s were attacked. And they say, well, Mr. AJ, it's tough. I never regained my vitality, my energy again. It's like it was taken from them forever. They have been felt like this for decades. Now, it became something very serious because hundreds of people were observing UFOs, and it's estimated that at least 1,000 people were attacked. And not only people, but also horses, cows, dogs, sheep, goats, whatever. Except for that the animals would die. And out of the 400 cases that doctor attended, 4 people died. 4 people died. They would show to her office, a clinic, a very small clinic. It's all very poor there, very low conditions, as you can imagine, in the middle of nowhere in Brazil. And they would have the wounds. The wounds would be generally from the upper arms and up, the shoulders, the thorax, and 75% of the cases, it were women who were attacked. Only 25% men. It became in 1975, but then in 1976 it got worse. And in 1st September 1977 it was very bad. So the community started to flee, escaping from the island. Out of 10,000 people that lived in Colares Island, which is a pretty big island in the Amazon, 9,000 went away. And the 1,000 that remained, they couldn't leave their houses because the balls of light would attack them. So they couldn't fish, which is their basic, primary work. They couldn't plant. They could do nothing. The food was missing. They couldn't do nothing. Then they decided to go to the government of the state of Pará. And when they went to the government thought, well, this is something that comes from the sky, so let's talk to the Brazilian Air Force guys. And he talked to the commander of an airfield that is based in Belém, like 150 kilometers from the island. And it was decided that an operation should take place involving from 2 to 3 dozen military men, all headed by this guy, who's Coronel Wirangé Holanda. And the operation started in September 1977. During that operation, over 2,000 pages of documents were produced by the military with the reports of the testimonies given by people. Over 500 black and white photos were taken, and 16 hours of footage was produced. Not video, only 8 millimeters and 16 millimeters video, all headed by this man. This military went to the island and they camped at one island beach, Humaitá, and then moved to another one, then to another one. During the day, they would talk to the victims and witnesses, and during the night, they would do sky watches with portable radars and everything. And their primary goal was try to register the phenomena as thoroughly as possible. And then, if not dangerous, if possible, try to engage in a contact with aliens, which they did. Now, this guy, 20 years after the Operation Saucer happened with Wirangé Holanda, he decided to open his heart. Up to that moment, he has never given any interview to anybody. But one particular day, he called me and said, "Hey, AJ, I gotta tell you that I admire what you're doing. And you have tried to find me before, make me talk, but I couldn't. I was in a relationship with Air Force, so now I am retired, and if you can come to my house, I will tell you everything about Operation Saucer," which I did. And when I met this man, I was impressed with his fresh memory of all the facts. He was a believer of UFOs since the beginning of the Operation Saucer. But he was not convinced that what was going on in that part of Brazil had anything to do at all with Operation Saucer, even though he went there and commanded the Operation Saucer that produced this kind of documents. Look at this. 2,000 pages of impressive reports made in a military format. These are maps showing the path of the UFOs according to the radar registering. And out of the 2,000 pages that were produced, we have about 400 released. You can have them all if you want, because this is for everyone who seeks the truth about the UFOs. Now, this is very impressive, because some pages of the documentations show the UFOs that were seen. Now, this is the suck-suck phenomena. Here you have one drawing and another drawing, all made by militaries, right? You can see very clear, but here are the two guys, and here the tube from where the beam of life would go and hit the people. And here is a mothership like UFOs. You'll see this in the pictures that I'll show just a second. In just a second. Okay? Here's another, what they describe. The military described as a mothership, like a B-2 kind of UFO. And this is a more technical design, a more technical drawing of the UFO that would attack people. What you can see here is lighting making a turn. Now, wait a minute. Have you ever seen light make a turn? No, it doesn't go like this and make a turn. It goes straight ahead. So we're talking about a very different type of technology here. Indeed, people would describe that the light would come from the UFO and change its path. We're dealing with a technology we couldn't possibly imagine. Perhaps in 100 years we'll make light to make turns. But not now, I'm afraid. Now, here are some more cases, and it all declassified. But thanks to the campaign, UFOs Freedom of Information now, that were conducted by the Brazilian UFO Researchers Committee. It worked, and the government released a lot of stuff. Now, some of the photos. Look here. Over 500 photos were obtained, of which we have about less than 200. Look at this. Now, I told you that one of the drawings reflected a mothership. This is what Wirangé Holanda said, that it was the mothership. But unfortunately, their quality is not very good, because even though they had best cameras available, the objects weren't easy to register. It was until the US military came and gave them special cameras and special films that they started to make better quality photos of the UFOs. This is very compelling, and it's also declassified. You can have it all. But there is a polemic, a debate about the ending of Operation Saucer. Some people say that Operation Saucer was closed, and officially it is closed. But is it actually? No, I don't believe so. Let me tell you something. I told you that one of the main goals of the Operation Saucer was to try to engage, if there is no risk, with and intelligences beyond the phenomena, because there was already, and it is written in the papers, a notion that there was an intelligence beyond the phenomena. Now, if the goal, the objective, the purpose was to meet it, to contact it, when it happened, they shut down Operation Saucer? That can just be reasonable. Because, I tell you that, because Willem Geolanda himself, with one of his men, he had a direct, close contact, eye to eye, with an alien occupant of one of the big spaceships. These are drawings that he made to me during our interview, and he described this machine, which was 100 meters high. It is here again. When they were in the Guajará River, this is the river. Here is how he draw. This is his signature. Him in a small aluminum boat with a rear motor, with one of his men. This boat, this river is about 70 meters wide, and they were coming to the other side of the island where the camping was located. But just before they started to go, they, for their biggest surprise, saw this big spaceship, cylinder-like object, 100 meters wide, 100 meters in length, almost touching ground on the other bank of the river, over there. And out of a small door in the upper part of it, an alien with that characteristics, just like a human person, with a casket over his head, white and black visor, and a white uniform. This guy, this alien guy, came out of the door in the top of this 100 meters object and floated, and stayed right here, right in front of Willem Geolanda. But no dialogue happened, not even telepathically, only eye-to-eye staring for a few seconds. Then the alien went back to the spaceship and it went away. Now, as part of his duties, Willem Geolanda will have to go regularly to his commander in the city of Belém to report the progress of the Operation Saucer. And when that close encounter happened, he was very excited. So he went the other day to talk to his commander, Brigadier Protásio Oliveira, who was a very smart guy, but when he listened to Willem Geolanda's report that they finally had a contact with an alien, he was astounded. And he decided, after a couple days of meditation in the subject, to shut down Operation Saucer. Why he took so long? Because he had to consult people in Brasilia, the federal capital, because he had to consult the military from the United States. Remember, in 1977, we were in a dictatorship in Brazil, as well most countries in South America, and it was all being run by the U.S. military and the U.S. intelligence. And of course, I had this confirmation, of course, it was the Brazilian military along altogether with U.S. military who took this decision and informed Willem Geolanda, shut down Operation Saucer. Get all the stuff, bring your men back to city, and don't speak about it to anyone. And he said, but Commander, we made a contact. It may go on. Say, Colonel, don't talk about this to me anymore. Forget it and live your life. And the Operation Saucer was officially ended. But actually, it continued, much more secretive, and under US military control. This caused Uirangê Holanda to be very unhappy for the rest of his life. And maybe this is a corroborative thing that made him took his own life just after he gave me that interview. The interview he gave me was in 1997. He watched me in a TV program speaking about, I was labeled at last, A.J. Gevaerd, hunter of UFO documents in Brazil, that kind of BS. And he watched that, and I was speaking about this all, and he wanted me to interview him, which I did with my co-editor, Marco Antonio Petit, and a few months later, he just killed himself. Some people say, he was killed. He was suicided by the government. And that's not the case. He actually suicided himself. Because there was no point to be killed after he had revealed everything, right? Other, the military should kill me as well, and should kill the Marco Antonio Petit, because it's to whom Uirangê Holanda told the whole story. But it's not the case. He actually suicided. Now let's go to the second case. Because one day, when Pia and Frederik invite me for more tobogs and aquavit in Denmark, I will have the all Operation Saucer fully described in a 2 or 3 hours lecture. Perhaps Virginia case that I speak in a few moments right now. Deal? Okay. Now let's talk about the second case very briefly, which we call the Brazilian, official Brazilian UFO night. It occurred, and it's called official night because at that particular night, on May 19th, 1986, 21, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 21 spherical UFOs were seen over the major cities in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, and they jammed the air traffic control radars. So it forced the military to send 7, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 7 jet fighters to identify the intruders. 3 were Mirage, French-produced jet fighters, and 4 Americans, 5 FEEs. And several authorities involved in the release of the information. Even though we were still under dictatorship, but at its very end, the military was quite open about it. They made press conference and let all the pilots to describe it to the audience and to the press. So it became a big thing. Guys such as these authorities here, he's a brigadier, he's another brigadier, and was a minister. This guy was also a minister. All of them gave very detailed reports of what happened. Now, this gentleman was the last one that I interviewed, Brigadier Sócrates Monteiro. By all this time, I have been interviewing militaries, not only in Brazil, but also I have been interviewing militaries in Uruguay, in Argentina, in Chile, in Peru, you name it, because they all have things to say. And right now, the feelings that we have, at least in South America, is that the military who know about UFO, they want to talk. They don't want to live with that. They think that they have a sense of citizenship that moves them to express, to tell people what they saw. But some of them simply can't say everything. And also, it was told to me that why the military, even though when they want to talk about it, they are discreet. Because it's the military mentality that something they don't control, they don't speak about. And of course, they don't control UFOs. If they say, yes, UFOs are real, the next question is going to be, how good? Since when you know that? And they will have to say, well, at least for 50 years. And the other question will be, and why do you think you could hide that from society for 50 years? So it's kind of embarrassing questions that will come over, and they don't have answers for that. Or that maybe the second question will be, all right, UFOs exist. What are them, where they come from, and who has constructed and is piloting them? And they don't have replies to those questions. Neither do us. But anyway, what was this official night of UFOs? A big rat and mouse chase of 21 UFOs during 2 to 3 hours over the major cities of Brazil. Big, big thing. But at that point, in May 19th, or May 20th, or May 21st, just the following days of what happened, our Ministry of Brazilian Air Force, the Ministry of Aeronautics actually, he said he will issue a report within 30 days, letting the society to know what happened. And this report never showed up. Not in 30 days, not in 60 days, not in 90 days, not in 120 days. Never happened. However, when we got the disclosure in Brazil made by the Brazilian Committee of UFO Researchers, the campaign UFO Freedom of Information now, when we got the package of papers from the 80s, that it was, the document that, among others, say everything about what happened. And this document is an occurrence report produced from it's from the Air Force Ministry and signed by the Brigadier José Carlos Pereira Cavalcante de Albuquerque. Now, a part of it that it is underlined here, which is actually one of the conclusions right here, says, the conclusion of this command is that the phenomenon is solid and reflects certain form of intelligence capable of following and preserving its distance from the jets, as well as flight information. Yes, folks, this was issued by the Brazilian Air Force. One general to another general for whole knowledge of the top-ranking militaries in Brazil. And it is declassified. Another piece of information that's very valuable to the world UFO community. Can you imagine? A solid phenomenon that reflects certain type of intelligence. 21 spheres seen all over the major cities of Brazil. We had them over Brasília, Rio, São Paulo, Goiânia, etc. And this has been declassified. All right? Now, the third and a very important case, let's go through it, and let's hope that we can do it in 15 minutes, perhaps less. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just very similar to what happened in 1947 in the United States when a UFO crashed in Corona, not in Roswell, according to Stanton Friedman, but in Corona. But anyway, the Roswell case in July 2, 1947. We had several other cases of UFO crashing in several parts of the world, including the United States, including in Brazil. I believe that there is one case here in Denmark as well. Now, in Brazil, we had several cases, and one of them took place in the night from the 19th to 20th, January 1996. And it's called the Caso Varginha, or the Virginia case, because of the city where it happened. It happened in the city of Varginha, the nearby. It all started in the middle of that night, a Friday to a Saturday. About 4 a.m., some witnesses see what seemed to be an object falling down, crashing. It has some sparkles going off its rear end. And just a few hours after that, several creatures start being seen nearby the city of Varginha, where the crash took place is just a couple of miles or so from the Varginha. And survivors from that crash, I guess, they saw the lights of the city and they walked towards it. When it was early in the morning of that Saturday, January 20, 1996, about 6:30, 7:30 a.m., people start walking in that particular area, going to work or whatever, start seeing that creature. Between 5 and 7 creatures were reported. And they thought they could be some sort of wild animals. They dropped stones at the creatures. They were smelling bad, like ammoniac, like they were rotting or something. So at some point, someone called the fire department guys in the city of Virginia. Virginia was a small town, like 60 to 80,000 people at that time. Because in Brazil, when you see a wild animal, and you do see wild animals like alligators coming into your pool, snakes coming into your garage, or mad dogs or whatever, you call the fire department guys to capture. And they do it using nets produced out of ropes and leather. This is precisely what happened. Someone called the fire department guys, and when they arrived, almost 3 hours later they were called, they arrived in a truck from the fire department and a second truck from the army. A truck that left the city of Três Corações, where the soccer player Pelé was born. 3 hearts, Três Corações. Because in Virginia, there was no military installation, only military police, but not army. And in that whole region, there was no Air Force at all. This is why the army was sent to take care of that. And once there was no army in Virginia, it was the army installation in a nearby city of Três Corações, only 20 miles away, that was taking care of this. So when the fire departments guys from the city of Virginia arrived, so did a truck from the army of the city of Três Corações. And they discussed, it was decided that it was the military, the fire department guys that should go into the bushes where the creatures were and capture as much as they could with these nets, which they actually did. But they only captured one creature, which was taken up the gorge in front of 50 guys, 50 witnesses looking at that. That creature was taken, put inside a wooden box, which was placed on top of the truck and taken away from Virginia. And of course, as only one was captured and the other ones were still at large, all police forces in the south of the state of Minas Gerais, which is a pretty big state, were all searching for the other creatures. From 5 to 7 were reported, but at least 2 were captured. One in that very morning, and the other one was captured at that same night. Now, this is when we come across a tragedy. Now, this guy here is Marco Eli Xerezi. He was a military officer, military soldier of the military police. Yes, we have military police in Brazil yet. They are trying to extinct it, but pressures against it, it's too big. Anyway, he was on leave. He was not even working at that Saturday. He was at home with his wife, who was pregnant of twins, 2 girls, which are now almost 20 years old. He himself was a very healthy guy, 23 years old. And he was sent, as everybody else, police forces that were on leave and the others that were working, were sent to search for what? To search for a strange creature or strange creatures. They were not given any information whatsoever if there was any danger to come close to the creatures. How do they look like? How they would proceed to capture it? They were all just told, go and look for something unusual. If you get it, grab it and bring it. This is what he did at that night of January 20, 1995. He was in this car from the military police who almost ran over a second creature, the second one that was captured. All the others remain at large. He in the car was in the passenger seat, the other military was driving, and they almost run over the creature. So they stopped, he went off the car, entered the bush, grabs the creature, disgusting creature, smelling bad, naked, small, choppy, like this, no clothes, brown, and totally brown, like there was a greasy, an oil spread all over its skin, big red eyes, protuberances that started like ridges from this part of the head to the end of the head. 3 toes, and three fingers, 2 toes. Very primitive kind of guys. But he grabbed one of them, got back to the car, sits in the passenger seats, and puts the creature on top of his lap, and they go to the hospital. Now, that military guy, 23 years old, died 3 weeks after that. 3 weeks. Like his immune system was just shut down. He had an infection in his abdomen, which was fought for and with medicines, and then he had an infection in his armpit, and this is what caused his death. Now, doctors say they never saw something like that. Now, we have diseases, attacks from bacteria every day, all day long, but our immune system can resist and fight them. And his immune system was shut down. We don't know if there are other military who had suffered or died. We don't know. We don't know where the other creatures, if there are any others, actually went. We just know that that second creature captured by Marco Elixeresi was taken to the main central hospital of the city of Virginia, where it was seen by other doctors, where it was seen by nurses, by employees, by visitors, by other patients. And it became obvious that the creature couldn't be kept there, so it was taken to a smaller hospital, kind of outside town. But it all took place. We all have that on file. We have leaks from many people. We have over 200 first-hand witnesses that gave us report of this. And unlike the Roswell case that happened in the United States, this is a much well-documented case. And let me tell you why. I had to tell that in front of Stanton Friedman in Homeford these days. He was not very happy, but this is the fact. See, while the Roswell case happened in 1947 and was investigated by accident only 25 years later, the Virginia case happened in 1996 and started to be investigated only 24 hours later. And during the next weeks and months, over 70 UFO researchers got involved in investigating the UFO case, that UFO case, talking to witnesses, talking to military, talking to everything, collecting data here, collecting data there. Even military will come to us and say, I can't live with this. I need to talk about you. But please don't make my name known. I want to stay anonymous. All right, no problem, as long as they give us the report. And they gave us. Now, the Army is still denies the whole thing. And yet, even though the Army is still denying the whole thing, we had managed, with the help of the press, to make it disclosed a very singular piece of material, which is a military police inquiry that was initiated to determine the responsibility of leaking information about the Virginia case. Yeah, it was released, it doesn't say a word about aliens, UFO crash, nothing. But it's a very thick and very serious document, military style, now declassified, to try to find out who were the military that leaked information to the UFO researchers. We cannot reveal our sources, of course, because some of them are still working. But I think that someday this whole thing of secrecy will end. So we got material from the Air Force, as you saw, but we got nothing from the Army. Nothing. The Army still says, and it just did 2 weeks ago again when someone asked, press asked, no, nothing happened, you're wrong. We don't have anything to do about the Virginia case, you never heard of it, nothing. Now, but anyway, even though the Brazilian UFO disclosure is yet incomplete, because of course they are not releasing everything, it has given us concrete data regarding the UFO phenomenon. Rise to the surface and reveal their characteristics and reveal what the UFOs are. And that they are more advanced than any technology that we know. And after we start our campaign, thousands of pages would come in bunks and in bulks. The 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, whatever. And we have that on our files. So now we know what the Brazilian UFO government knows about UFOs. It's quite interesting. If you sit and start reading those pages, you'll be amazed. And while we start doing this campaign, very surprisingly to us, top-ranking Brazilian military gave us their support. Like this general, this brigadier, this gentleman, who was the commander of the Brazilian Aerospace Defense Command. Look what he said. All secret documents must be released. The UFO phenomena does not pose a threat to the national security. It must become acknowledged by all society and not only by concerned UFO hunters. It must be acknowledged by all society. It doesn't pose a threat to the national security. This is what they think about. Does the phenomena pose a threat to the national security? No, UFOs don't. So why keep the data secret? Let's reveal them all. And by the way, it was this guy who did 2 very important actions.
10 minutes.
50 minutes?
10.
10. All right. It was this guy who started 2 very important actions. First, we know that since the 50s, all UFO reports given to the Brazilian Air Force were being written down. Now, he had them all digitalized in a huge data bank. And from the year 2004, he had this form to pilots report UFO sightings. Now, if you are a pilot, Brazilian or not, but flying in Brazil, and you report a UFO through the radio, it means it goes official. Because if you only see and don't report, it's not official. But if you see and report, it's official. And if it's official, you are supposed to get down when you land, don't crash, when you land, and get that report, fill it out, and give to the government. That was that man. The other brigadier, Ateneu Zambuja, also commander of the Brazilian Air Force Defense Command, look what he said. The investigation of the UFO phenomena must be conducted by civilian investigators. It is an obligation of the Brazilian Air Force to support them in this task, and we shall do so, or we shall do it. We are still expecting that support. And another guy, which was the last one that I interviewed, Brigadier Sócrates Monteiro, of course, all of them are retired. He was the former Minister of Aeronautics. He said, Brazilian military have been monitoring UFO for decades. And these are words that come from the brigadier, who once was the very top in the country. the most ranked UFO military in Brazil, and he said their technology, UFO's technology, is immensely more advanced than ours, and their action must be of public knowledge. Now, in our campaign, we did so much noise. Well, of course, we're Brazilians. We're supposed to make noise. And we did so much noise, but so much noise with the press, that we were invited by the Brazilian Ministry of Defense to meet with the commanders of each one of the forces. Brazilian Air Force, Brazilian Navy, and Brazilian Army. And it took place in April 18. Oh, it's 2013, not 1013. Right? That's the Ministry of Defense, our MOD. These guys are half the Brazilian Committee of UFO Researchers, and we were there. See? This is Francisco, Tiago, Jenner, Petit, Fernando, and this handsome guy is me. We are discussing with the military. We are telling them what we wanted. We were invited to go there and say what we UFO researchers seek, what we want from them. And we had a chance to talk to one guy from the command of the Army, another from the command of the Navy, another from the command of Air Force, and we explained all we had and all we wanted. And it was promised to us that we will get more and more disclosure in the next years. Now, this is also something that you will never see, at least up to now, or you have never seen. In nowhere in the world have UFO researchers, civilians, been invited by the Ministry of Defense of their country to meet and to say what they want. It happened to us. And I'm very proud that it happened to us. Now, is the secrecy over? Of course not. Even though they have given us 7,000 pages, it's nothing. I would say that is perhaps 10%, 20% of all they have. So they gave us what they could give us, and some more exciting paper. But the secrecy still remains. But now, we are seeing several countries doing just about the same. What they have given us in Brazil is this, the tip of the iceberg. But we are greedy guys. We want everything that is underneath the water. Oh, it's too big to carry. Well, we'll do several trips, but we'll carry them all home and have it, right? Now, we have countries like France, Uruguay. Do you know that Uruguay has a UFO committee for an official committee for UFO research since 1979? Yes, it does. So does Chile. Chile has a committee of UFO researchers inside the Civilian Aviation Department of Chile since 1997. Several other countries here have given up their secrets. Italy, Canada, England. Now and then, England comes with documents. Spain, 1983. Now, even countries that didn't have an exact tradition of covering up UFOs, such as Germany or Denmark or Australia or New Zealand, they have all released documents. And as long as Peru. Now, in South America, Uruguay, Chile, Peru, Ecuador, oh, I missed Ecuador here, I'm sorry. And Argentina, they all have working right now bodies to officially investigate UFOs. And I included the Vatican. Some people must be thinking, why did he include the Vatican? My friends, the Vatican is probably the state or the organization, that depends on how you see it, that most know about UFOs. Because even though these other countries, and the United States in particular, have been investigating UFOs for 60 years, the Vatican has gotten report of UFOs for 400 or 500 of years from all over the world. So they really know. Someday we can go further in this. Now, our efforts have not stopped We still go on. And every year we make, in Brazil, a very big UFO conference called the World UFO Forum, where we issue a letter that goes to the government demanding, requesting something. Now, this is our next conference and our next step. It's in Portuguese, it's a trailer, it's only 2 minutes, but I would like you to see it so you have an idea of how heavy it is. It will present all the speakers that are invited to come from 10 countries. We're speaking of 25 speakers coming from 10 countries, and Brazil, of course, to present their findings. Most of them to present what their governments found about UFOs. As it has happened since 2012. This conference will take place in Iguaçu Falls, one of the most visited destinies by tourists, in December 3 to 6. It will be the biggest conference in Brazil and one of the biggest in the world. 7th UFO Forum. Look at the speakers. This is a Brazilian guy who investigated a case in Finland. Another guy who has investigated and discovered that Sumerians have been to South America back 2,000 years ago. This is Martin Carlos Serasola from Argentina, Carlos Odoni from Brazil, chemistry professor, Deborah Goldstein from Argentina, a man who works at the Congress in Brazil, Fernando Ramalho, Gary Hazeltine from UK, presenting his views about UFOs, Jenner Silva, very well-known UFO researcher in Brazil, Gilda Moura, an exceptional hypnotherapist who had dealt with thousands of UFO cases, as well as Tony Najar Kurovsky, who is a police expert, John Carpenter from the United States, Kathleen Marden, the niece of Betty Hill, Marco Antonio Petit, our veteran UFO researcher, Margaret Akla, who has been in contact with aliens since her childhood, Mary Rodwell, who will present to you in a few minutes. She's going to come to Brazil. So is Monica de Medeiros, a doctor who has been dealing with UFO abductees. Nick Redfern from UK, now living in the United States. Nicolas Terra. This guy's Exopolitics in Chile. Paul Iannuzzi, Exopolitics in Brazil. Rafael Amorim, very skilled field investigator in the South. Thiago Cicchetti, one of our co-editors. Valery Uvarov from Russia, a scientist that defends that aliens are protecting our planet. Our sponsor, Wilson Pickler. Journalist from Mexico, Johanan Diaz Vargas, who will present the last findings of the Mexican government, and our special participation by David Hatter Childress in Brazil. It's the same. Thank you. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Now to finish up, let me tell you something more. See, we are doing this not because we, the UFO researchers, want the truth for us. We want the truth for everybody. We want the truth for the entire Brazilian society, for the entire world. This is why we join also campaigns made in other countries, because we have succeeded in Brazil. If we can help someone else to succeed in their country, we can do of any assistance after all. Well, we're there because we want this to be known by everybody. The UFO presence, the alien presence in our planet, which is millenary, which has been on for thousands of years, must be of entire knowledge of the society. Now, in Brazil, the original destination of this material is the National Archives, either in Brasilia or in Rio de Janeiro. And this is it. This is the address where you can find all the documents and download it in PDF format. Right? Okay? So thank you very much again. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.